Welcome to this next edition of Interviews with KKL-JNF. I have the pleasure today of speaking with Gilad Ostrovsky. He is KKL-JNF's Chief Forester. Welcome, Gilad.
Hello, nice to meet you.
You as well. So, I want to jump right into this just by getting a little bit of an understanding about what you actually do, because before we ask questions, we need to understand who you are. So what does it mean to be the Chief Forester?
A good question. And I think anyone who became a forester most of the time like very much his work. And I'm, as a chief forester, I'm responsible of about 30 foresters around Israel. And we have the Department of Forestry that occupies about 25 personnel from different specialities. And we're responsible about the policy, about writing down guidelines, going hand by hand with the local foresters and looking after the implementation, assisting them in planning the work plan for the year, and also when sometimes shocks like the war that came, how to choose the right steps and what to do, and how to stick on a long, to look to the future and to plan how the forest will be for decades from now.
So it's exactly, you brought up, I think, what is on everyone's mind, which is that the war, has really wreaked havoc on all of our lives. We talk a lot about the entire country living in a state of collective trauma, but we don't talk about maybe enough is the impact that the war actually had on nature, on our environment, including our forest. Many open areas and forests that were managed by KKL were actually damaged both in the north and in the south, both by the infiltration by Hamas terrorists into southern Israel and by the rockets that had been raining down in both sides of the country. What are the implications for the lands and the wildlife from this war?
Actually, there are quite severe implications. We don't know them for sure because some of the areas are still restricted. We cannot go in. The damages were obviously in the southern part of the Negev, in the western southern part of the Negev, and also in the upper Galilee. Yeah. And I think some fires occurred, but not only fires, heavy trucks, tanks, troops go over some of the open spaces, the forest, the agriculture, the natural reserves were damaged. Places for forest roads were damaged, and we have to fix them. New roads were just suddenly open and were like all over, and we still assist the level of the damages. But we know what we have to do. When looking about the vegetation, it's a long-term process. When looking on the concrete infrastructure, we can fix them right away when we will be allowed to get in.
So how is KKL then preparing for this ecological restoration? Is there already some kind of strategic plan in place?
Actually, we have our agenda and strategic plan in general, what to do with forests that have a severe damage, like mega forest fires or heavy rain and winds that trees collapsed, and we have like a step after step what to do, like a manual. And I'll tell you that we have operations that we have to do immediately, mainly in places where visitors come, and from the safe to make sure that they are safe enough to take all gravel and fallen trees and whatsoever, and also along forest roads. And then about the vegetation rehabilitation, we firstly take a breath. Okay, the vegetation has its own power. We want to see if actually the trees can regenerate by themselves. And we usually wait for one winter to pass to see how actually they react to the fire, to the damage, to the broken trees, and so on. And then actually we go and conduct surveys after each species and look what we have, what damages we have. And we wait generally a few years after actually take a proper action and replant. And if it's possible, we prefer to let natural processes to bring back the forest. So there are immediate actions and some long-term actions.
So when you talk about the timeline, when we look at it in small pieces and big pieces, how long really will this restoration take? You know, if it's is it ever going to get back to where it was before the war?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And actually, we have a lot of knowledge because some we know how the forest actually acted in the past while severe forest fires occurred. And we know that actually we want to conduct the future forest to be more resilient. That's mean if there's a place that we know that fires will occur, we are actually replacing the species to less flammable species. And also the density is a little bit looser. And we also make fire zones, like it's like 30 to 50 meters with less dense vegetation and also very intense treated to make sure that fire would not be back there. And also we fix the roads and make sure and hopefully that actually they use only the roads and not like additional roads, because many roads it's like erosion and less trees. So I believe that in 1 year, like the general infrastructure will be ready. And then the vegetation, it depends on the severity of the hazard. But when we had like a beautiful pine tree, to get back to the same size and shape, and also it's 30, 40 years.
So long. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, I'm assuming that your team has been having to go down to whatever extent that you can to get in and to examine what has happened. As you mentioned, some areas are still unable to be assessed as of now, but a lot of it has. So, what has it been like for your team to function under fire?
Yeah, actually, it's a big challenge for us. Some of the foresters went to reserves. They actually, like some of our friends, personnel, are still in Miluim, in the reserve. And, some of them, families and friends were, the outer circles of the damage. It's very hard, actually, it's very hard. But I think that also, to be in the forest and to think that and to see that you have like a purpose to rehabilitate the vegetation and to make the forest blooming again, something like that people get strength from it. And so we all together, we're less people because some are staying still in reserves. We know that we have a lot of work. We think that we can handle it. And we see, the desire of the general population to go back to the open spaces. Like in the Corona times, actually wartime and also very tense times, people admire even more the open spaces and forests, and that gives us a lot of strength to go on.
Amazing. So I do want to ask you a couple of quick questions that are not directly related to the war, simply because there are other issues, especially outside of Israel, where they're not focused on October 7th and the Gaza war. And the main one I would say is actually climate change. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency talks about climate change damaging forests, from wildfires, insects, disease outbreaks. what is the situation in Israel's forests? Again, not related to the war in general. And what do you plan to do to mitigate the future effects of climate change on our forests?
That's a major challenge, because actually, when we talk about climate change, we also talk about uncertainty. We're not sure about how severe it would be. We're not sure about how trees will react to severe conditions like shortage of water, more heat waves, and so on. So actually, just recently, we have accomplished to write down like a policy paper about preparing the forest for climate change. We learned very carefully, the US documents and also some from our European colleagues. And our major effort is how to actually treat the forest in a way that trees will survive. That means that we do the thinning process to make it fit that each tree will have enough water to survive. And also to make sure that our guidelines will not allow to, insects and all kinds of things that we're not sure how will they behave in climate change, not to let them attack the forest. Also, we put a lot of emphasis about grazing. Grazing is a major treatment method that actually we have all around Israel, cows and sheep mainly, and actually they can protect the forest from fires to occur, and also in the right amount of animals, they can actually make good things for the forest. So the policy guidelines are mainly about preventing fires, healthy forest, and make the forest more resilient to more severe conditions.
What can Israeli citizens and your supporters around the world do to protect our forests?
Actually, we see the major population as our friends and colleagues, and we're happy that many people go out and stay in the forest. Our main challenges is actually how to prevent littering, waste all over, and also to recruit people to work with us to keep the forest clean. That's one major aspect we work on. Secondly, is because Israel is such a dense country, all the time infrastructure and new housing and so on is on the expense of the open spaces and forests. So we like that actually the people will know that the forest is for them, and we want them to be with us while we try to keep the size of the forest in place and not lose every year some extra hectares of the forest. So I think most of the population actually like the forest and want to help, but those two things we like to improve it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Gilad Ostrovsky, KKL-JNF's Chief Forester, for joining me today and sharing these kind of insights about how our nature, our wildlife forests are doing in the aftermath of the October 7th war, and of course, looking ahead at restoration, both internally and also mitigation against climate change so that we can have a healthy environment for all of us. Have a good day.
Thank you.